Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for using tech to connect and motivate your workforce. My name is Kaylee Hansen. I'm with GoCo, and we are working with Biz Library to put on this webinar for you guys today. So we hope you are all having a great day. Susan, you're actually reading my mind, I think. I would love to know where everyone is tuning in from. So Susan is in Michigan. Tracie, David, where are y'all live from today?
I'm from Concord, New Hampshire.
Oh,
Oh, I
fun.
wish I was from Barbados. We have somebody in Barbados. That sounds awesome. Or Florida. Yeah, New Hampshire.
Yeah,
It's actually a beautiful day in New Hampshire today.
nice. Yeah, Giselle, I'm not too terribly far away from you. I am coming to you live from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Perfect. I was on a webinar last week. We hosted one of our 3 in 30 seminars, and I was asking the same question. And there were a lot of fellow DFW people tuning in, and the weather here is just absolutely horrible right now. I think it's about 105 degrees. So I am very, very ready for cooler fall temperatures here in DFW.
Tracie, somebody likes the Pikachu in your background.
And I'm not going to do it because I'm literally wearing shorts and I don't want to ruin the thing, but that turns on and it's a neon sign my daughter got me for my birthday. So yeah,
Love
but
that.
we're going to have to imagine. It's like, oh, I should have turned that on.
I love it so much. So just a couple little housekeeping things before we get started. I will be sending this recording and the slides to all of the attendees and the registrants after this webinar. So be on the lookout for that, as well as once we get to the end of the webinar, I will share our SHRM code in the chat. So be on the lookout for that as well. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to put them in chat or put them in the dedicated Q&A section on Zoom, and we will get to them. And if we can't get to them during the webinar, we'll for sure get to them afterwards and send out the answers to everyone. So again, we thank you all for joining us today. Looks like we're tapering off a little bit in the people joining, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. Perfect. Again, so everyone, thank you for joining using tech to connect and motivate your workforce today. We are very excited for this awesome discussion between Tracie and David. So just a little bit of agenda housekeeping. We're going to do some introductions, and then we're going to go through different parts of the webinar and different parts of the process of connecting and motivating your workforce through technology. So Tracie, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. Hi, I'm Tracie Sponenberg. Obviously, love Pikachu. Interestingly, not a gamer. Detective Pikachu is one of my favorite movies. So you'll find little bits and pieces of me kind of all over in my background. So I'm the chief people officer for a company called the Granite Group, and we're a wholesale distributor based in the Northeast. And on the side, I get to do little things like this and connect with people all over the place in the HR field and beyond.
Perfect. Thank you, Tracie. All right, David, give us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So my name is David Butler. I am a client success manager with Biz Library. And if you are familiar with SaaS companies, and if you know anything about GoCo, you know what software as a service is. Me and my team, basically, we are here to make sure that our clients get the absolute most out of their investment with us. So we will partner with our clients to understand what's going on with their companies and throw in our 2 cents with new things that are coming down off the platform, help to formulate plans for new usage, and basically make sure that you are not alone in your Biz Library journey. You have one of us every step of the way.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you so much, David. And we're so excited to be hosting this webinar alongside Biz Library. So a little plug for GoCo and Biz Library. GoCo is an all-in-one HRIS. So we help HR teams really get the time back in their day to help the people that matter most to your company, which are your employees. We pride ourselves on our client success team, 5 stars across the board, and we are just really thankful to have a really great dedicated team to help everyone who is using GoCo. And then David, do you want to give a little bit about Biz Library specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. Biz Library is, in the 25 plus years that we have been around, we have gone from just producing our own content with basic learning to becoming an upskilling powerhouse. So not only do we have content that we have created, especially our Expert Insight series with some of the people that you see on the screen right now, some of the top minds in the business. We also have a fully functional LMS for using and distributing content. We have live webinars with subject matter experts. We have all sorts of functions and another 5-star client success team to make sure that you have everything that you need to upskill and promote the clients at the employees at your company. We truly are the place. It's not just a bunch of learning videos. We are where learning happens.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. All right, so let's just jump right into it, you guys. So the first question that I have after talking with both of you is, in today's fast-paced, digital-centric work environment, how have you seen the challenges of employee connectivity, alignment, management, things like that evolve, especially with remote and dispersed teams?
We didn't rehearse this, so this is going to be just David and I are going to just kind of dive in and discuss. Oh, gee, thank you. And I'm a deep introvert, so I'm going to turn red, and Katie knows how much I love to go first, but we try. So we've talked so much about the pandemic, and unfortunately, we still need to keep talking about the pandemic and as it relates to communication, because it just changed so much, at least for companies like mine, right? So most of my company is face-to-face with the customers. So we're largely in person, but not entirely in person. And fortunately, because we are largely dispersed, we had a lot of things set up. So we were able to kind of pivot and move. So we use a variety of different methods to connect people, some digital, some not. But as I think of kind of what happened over the past few years, a few things, major things come to mind. So over the past few years, we kind of went, for at least a couple of years, all our meetings are on Zoom. And so then you can tend to over rely on that one form of communication, which may not work for everybody and may only serve your company or your people for a period of time. It is really hard to sit across and talk to somebody on a screen for 8 hours a day or more. And so that's like really, really, really exhausting. So, that's one of the major issues, I think. And one of the issues that we faced too was equity in all kinds of ways. But you have in-person workers, you have remote workers, you have hybrid people. And how do you ensure that your communication methods, your culture, everything that you bring to these folks, or everything that you develop, or everything that you help foster, how do you ensure that that's equitable across everyone? And then how do you adapt your managers, and how do you train your managers to kind of adapt to that new sort of world of work? Those are just kind of a few things that come to mind.
I will say I've seen a lot of that, and what I've been interested in seeing with my own experience is pre-pandemic, a lot of the technology that we are currently using, such as Zoom, Slack, Teams, so on and so forth, a lot of that was already in place and just being used naturally in a lot of ways. Even when I did have to go into an office, sometimes those communication tools were easier and gave a paper trail almost. So in a lot of ways, it was sort of better that we did that. And so when the pandemic finally hit, a lot of us had already been sort of used to some of those things. I'm not going to say that it's completely removed. Here at Biz Library, we do try to get together on occasion a few times throughout the year for a little bit of face-to-face. But having that little bit of face-to-face, once or twice a year, sometimes does a lot in terms of helping to encourage more communication and more resiliency when it comes to speaking to somebody on a video the size of a postage stamp, because you kind of know who the person is in reality, in real life, and you're able to sort of work from there. I know that at Biz Library, we have also tried to gear a lot of our content, or some of our content, specifically towards a remote workforce, because kind of what you said, Tracie, it is a little difficult to motivate a workforce if you are not used to doing that in a remote setting. While motivation is standard, how that happens has to tweak slightly depending on the situation of the tools that you're given. And so we do try to kind of have that as one of our offerings to help encourage new managers or managers that are new to this situation.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much. So I know that we were talking about Zoom and in person and all of the changes that have come post-pandemic. So can you share some specific examples of how technology specifically, not just Zoom or Slack or technology like that, but have been instrumental in fostering really strong connections amongst your teams, amongst your organizations, especially in this post-pandemic world? David, do you want to start?
I think I will. I am always a big fan, and to be perfectly honest with you, kind of amazed on some of the, I will call them sort of groupthink apps, things such as Google Docs or whiteboards, stuff where even if we were in person, we wouldn't be able to work on the same thing at the same time. And now here we are, everybody's able to draw onto one file and it's able to be saved and kind of work through that. It's kind of amazing. And being able to do that regardless of where anybody is really does help a lot when it comes to understanding that you will, even though you are not in the same place physically, you are still a part of this single overarching group as a group.
Yeah, and I think we use that too. We use Microsoft, so that those collaboration tools are really great, including Teams. So including Teams, and one of the coolest things within Microsoft, which sort of brings people together within a fun way, at least our organization, is the little buttons that you can click and like heart or like an email. It's such a simple thing, but it can really kind of knit people together in a way that we didn't have before we had that tool. And so, that really helps. We don't use Slack because we have a really dispersed workforce of all kinds of different things. We started using texting. I know we're probably a little behind on that, but that works really well for our drivers, for our other folks who are out in the road all of the time. But we're starting to dip into brainstorming and what that looks like on a kind of a broader basis. And we're also starting to do kind of peer-to-peer feedback. So there's some great tools out there that I know 15.5 has one. I know that Bridge that we're going to roll in has some, and Bonusly does that as well. That has a lot of that peer-to-peer communication. It may be very simple things, but that's really, I think, when we're looking at, connecting and motivating a workforce, it's not always, yes, you want to be connected to your manager, but it's your peers. I mean, that's why you're going to stay. If you like the people that you work with and you feel like you're making a contribution, that's why you're going to stay. And that's what we want, as leaders in the organization as well.
Yeah, definitely. No, I love that. So when it comes to, we have Teams, we have GoCo, we have Biz Library, we have 15.5. How do learning platforms specifically, when we're thinking about, employee growth and development and HR, how do they drive performance and productivity and professional growth? And David, I'm actually going to go to you again for this one first, just because of the nature of Biz Library and what we're talking about here.
That's literally what Biz Library does. And I will say there's sort of two sides of that, the manager side and the employee side. With the employee side, having that digital library, having that easy access, no matter where you are, to whatever sort of content you want to take a look at, whether it's learning Python or C++, or whether it's learning how to improve your writing skills, or being able to identify slip hazards in the workplace. That access is a beautiful thing, and that way the employee can sort of take that learning and take that knowledge quest into their own hands. From a manager standpoint, it really is all about accountability, both understanding who is taking what, and more importantly, who hasn't taken some of the required things. A proper LMS such as Biz Library, you'll be able to assign content that can be given a specific due date and to remind the employees that this has to happen. And this is much more than just anti-harassment. I've got a lot of clients that are currently using it when it comes to communication with other employees, or a big thing right now is AI. Learn about AI because this technology is out there. You're hearing about it. Here's what it is. That way, the management team is able to understand something that's going on and be able to push out education to their employees almost immediately without having to go through the process of trying to hunt down a provider, look at the content, and so on and so forth.
Perfect. So Tracie, with you working at the Granite Group and all your vast experience at other companies, how do you think about learning management systems?
So I think in the best case scenario, right, that performance, productivity, and personal growth, they're all knitted together. And I think some of the best platforms, and I'm sure Biz Library does do that as well, does that, not only does that, but they can track that through data and measure that through data. So I'll talk a little bit about how our platform does that and what we created, which works really well for us. So we look at learning and development. We call it learning, not training. So we look at that as both kind of aspirational and also really practical. And we also look at it as a two-way street. We kind of provide that for our people, and they raise their hands and they take the training, and there are certain things like somebody gets in an accident, we have mandated safety training, things like that. But beyond that, we're making it available, and we want people to learn. We want people to go in and take those learning paths. So we've created learning paths for what we call our entire branch system. And that's where most of our people are, everything from driver to the warehouse to a branch manager. And that's basically everything that you need to know in that role. So it drives performance because somebody is equipped with everything they need to know in that role. It drives productivity because they know what the hell they're doing. And it drives professional growth because somebody can actually master that and then move on to the next path, even if they're not in that role yet. So that's where that aspirational comes in. So it's relatively new to us, but we can track those metrics. We can see that over time. We can do something like we have a mental health partner that has a video, and we dropped that into the platform so we can drop that into our mental health learning path, because that goes beyond your position. It's really important that learning goes beyond the things that you need to know for your position. And Siri was talking. So anyway, that's what works for us. And there's lots of different ways to do this, but this works very well for us so far.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. On to the next question then. How do you feel that digital tools can improve cross-functional cooperation and knowledge sharing throughout departments? I know here at GoCo, we have very many departments dispersed around very many different continents. And so how do you think that digital tools can help provide that cross-functional cooperation for someone like me who's in marketing, who might need some help from someone on our engineering team in Brazil? And then Tracie, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. And I think this is similar to what we talked about in the beginning. It's very similar. So I'm going to dive into some theoretical things that we don't necessarily use, but might be helpful for our, not theoretical, they're really practical, but in theory, we're not using them yet, but they might be helpful for the people in our audience. So we talked about, David and I talked about the document sharing, right? So, you can do that also through Slack. We can do that. We have Microsoft. We can do that through Teams, as well as the Word and Excel and all of the other collaboration. There's Discord as well. Project management tools, which we've tested out a bunch, and I think we're going to settle on the project management tool in Microsoft. I think this is really important, particularly for HR teams, because I was talking about this with my team the other day. We have a ton of ideas. We have a ton of things going on. And it's always like, where's Janet on this? where's Jeff on this? Where's, instead of, and we have kind of a loose tracking in Teams, but we're developing a bona fide project management tool that will help us not only know what we're working on, but help us hold each other accountable. And no matter where we are working, and we come together at least every 2 weeks physically, that we're dispersed throughout, no matter where we're working, we'll be able to see that. And then you can, you get into knowledge sharing. This is another thing we're really trying to track, or really trying to develop, pulling things together, whether it's through internal wikis or some type of, external system that you use internally, but capturing that knowledge that you have. And then ERP systems can be another really great tool for sharing. And there's some others, but I want to have David jump in and learn a little bit what he thinks.
No, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. When it comes to the knowledge sharing, especially across departments, making sure that everybody's on the same page is critical, because I've had this happen at other companies where my marketing team is thinking one thing, our product team is thinking something else, the sales team has a whole other idea in mind, and they go off and sort of do their own thing to the detriment, ultimately, of the customer. And so having a tool, such as some of the ones that we've discussed right now, is tantamount to making sure that not only is everybody seeing the same thing, but they're seeing the same information at the same time. One of the tools that we rolled out last year, we call Biz Classroom. And you're able to, from within our Biz LMS ecosystem, do a live video and incorporate one of the lessons, whether it be something that we created or that you created and uploaded, at the same time, so everybody who's in the classroom can look at it, watch it, communicate with each other, such as we're doing now, at the same time. And so that's a great way to make sure that for a fact everybody's on the same page, because they are looking at the same page and discussing it in active time.
And I want to and those are great points. I want to just jump in, and this is another good point. David mentioned this in the training, that this is a good place to interject a little AI and generative AI. And we're seeing more and more and more the ability for AI to kind of knit together literally everything. So I think the adoption, at least in the small to medium-sized companies and small HR departments, a department of one, is pretty slow. The knowledge is pretty low right now, but every time I've talked about this over the past few months, everybody is going to be using this at some point, because it makes our job easier, and it goes far beyond ChatGPT. So it can really solve a lot of the problems that we have now. And I'm sure it'll come up again, but this is a great place to kind of interject that.
Yeah, no, I love the AI conversation. David, do you have any thoughts on using AI for especially connectivity, motivation across different departments?
I would definitely say start with proofreading, because it's not going to be perfect. But no, AI is actually really, really good when it comes to creating something to sort of work on, whether it be a brainstorm. In fact, I was just using it for brainstorming this morning, or crafting messages. Especially in my position, I write a lot of emails. I write a lot of, I wouldn't say manuals, but documentation of that standpoint. And it's a great place to start with, to give yourself something that may either communicate in a slightly different, slightly better, with being a relative term, of course, way than what you would originally think of, or gives you some place to start with.
Yeah, I think that is super helpful. My whole team is using it to, at least it's a great brainstorming tool. And I think beyond that, what we're seeing now and what we've seen for a while, like companies like Phenom and Pin, who've been around for several years, can take the employee experience and knit the different things together. So it can automate, for example, emails being sent to your people on their anniversary, taking data from your HCM. It can automatically deliver training to, or send training to somebody who got promoted, taking data from there. So that's when I think about like what's next for us from a digital strategy standpoint, I think a lot about that because that is really revolutionary. And there's a few companies that are doing it well, but we're going to see more and more and more.
Perfect. Yeah, I know when we were at the SHRM conference this year with for GoCo, AI was a very hot topic at all of the panels and all of the booths and the chats and talks. So another thing that's been gaining popularity over the years is gamification. So could you share some successful examples of how your organization has used gamification and really what is gamification? I mean, a lot of people have kind of heard it, but don't really know what's involved in it. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts on this other popular trend that's been popping up recently. And I know both of you expressed interest in this. So David, do you want to kick us off?
I guess I'll start with the gamification definition. Basically, gamification takes the normal tasks that an employee or a person would be doing and converts it into a game by giving some sort of prize, whether it be real or virtual, when certain thresholds are met. And what's interesting about BizLMS is that we actually feature gamification in the LMS for anybody to do. It's actually pretty open, so you can create the sort of game that you want to create. You can decide at what levels people get badges, and you can even decide on what those badges are going to look like. And so I have a number of clients that will gamify their biz library usage based on the number of lessons that their employees are completing or the number of minutes that their employees are engaging with the platform. So if they've taken 25 minutes of lessons this month in August, they get badge level 1, and then 50 minutes badge level 2, and 100 minutes badge level 3. And it's amazing. Even though we are all adults, we will jump through hoops to get those digital badges. They have no physical equivalent. They mean absolutely nothing in the real world, but there's a badge of honor, no pun intended, for having those things when you log into Biz Library. And the best companies that I've seen will actually go one step further and not only celebrate to the employees what's going on, but they will also message the rest of the company, here's your leaderboard for this month. And they will go out of their way to make sure that it's their names that are on those leaderboards, that they are the ones being recognized for those digital badges that they created within the LMS.
I love it. And I think of, I'm a Peloton devotee. And so I'm like chase those badges. So they do that really well. And Facebook has started doing that in recent years. So I'm like a top fan for the Blue Dog Bar and Grill in Matlacha, Florida, right? Like, oh, that's pretty cool. People, it makes you think about things and it makes it fun. But I've got a couple of examples in which we've used it that really, really help. So one thing for cybersecurity and IT, no offense to anybody in that field, but can be a little bit dry. So our IT department has developed this training that gamifies it in really simple ways. You don't get anything other than like a kudos and a little, cartoony type of thing at the end, but they're framed in sort of, the trainings are short and they're framed in sort of a fun way where you get an achievement, kind of like a video game. We also have a new one now, but our first platform, and we still gamify it, but I think the first one we had was a little bit more robust for our health insurance. And actually, we were able to have these games or these challenges that people could compete in, that they could complete them and they would get points that they could then cash in for gift cards. When we did that, we saw a decrease in the cost of our health plan. Now, there were certainly other factors at play, but on the face of it, we could tie that gamified platform to that. So that worked really well for us. And to get a couple of more examples, I turned to ChatGPT. Now I can get real nerdy with AI and ChatGPT. I went through the whole certificate program with Microsoft, and so ChatGPT is a large language model. So it was trained in I think October 2021. So the information's a little bit old, but I looked for a couple of examples that were sort of fun. And there's a company called Spar in Australia that they people earn points and badges by doing different learning modules, and the program had a 90% participation rate and saw an incredible increase in the knowledge retention of its people. And then Deloitte used gamified badges, leaderboards, rankings, etc., for training as well. So you can see this, like David said, this is used a lot in training. So they found people were returning 50% faster to the platform once they started gamifying it. So there's a lot of really great real world examples, but bottom line, if you make it fun for people, they're going to want to do it. And there's a whole movement in learning and development. Like, don't make it really boring and long, and something that people have to do. Try to make it something that people at least don't hate doing, that they maybe even want to do.
No, that makes perfect sense. And we actually have a question, Tracie, in the Q&A. Someone asked if you could share the gamified cybersecurity system that you use, or if it's something specific to the Granite Group.
Well, I could if I knew it off the top of my head of the vendor. Just whoever asked the question, just ping me on LinkedIn and I'll make sure I either look it up or find it from IT and send it to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tracie. I know that one thing we do here at GoCo, so we use Slack at GoCo, and we have something called tacos. And whenever you have someone who, does something really beneficial to help another team, or someone who has reached a certain level in their position or passed a certain certification, you can tag their name, put little taco emojis, and they get tacos. So it's showing the organization what they're doing and how great that they are, and on that Slack level. But then also you can build up your tacos and trade it in for GoCo swag or little company gift cards. And so that reward system is really exciting whenever you see someone in Slack pop up with 5 tacos next to their name, and then the other employees are celebrating them, and so they send tacos as well. So gamification is something that I've just recently started to learn about and explore, but it feels really rewarding as well.
But how do you turn that into actual tacos? So that's a really cool idea. But if you can turn that into actual tacos, my first week 8 years ago. My first week 8 years ago in the company, real quick story, we have a vendor called Taco, and I saw it was a Taco counter day. It's spelled TACO. And I was very disappointed to get there and realize that it was not a taco counter day. So I think tacos could solve the world's problems for the most part. So
for sure, definitely.
I had a little too much coffee. So this is a fun discussion.
So let me go on to the next question. So we have, gamification, we have badges, we have Slack and Teams and Zoom, but how can we, make technology something that the C-suite really cares about? So implementing new technology is very scary with budget and just implementation and things like that. So how do you suggest going about the C-suite conversation when it comes to regarding technology and why it could be beneficial for your organization? David, do you want to get this one first?
Sure, absolutely. I would probably say that it's not so much the technology for the sake of having technology that you want to take a look at, as much as what is the problem that you're trying to solve and what are the potential ramifications for not having something to solve that problem. It's funny, our chief revenue officer, Chris Elliott, and if you don't follow him on LinkedIn, you absolutely should, because he's fantastic, about a week and a half ago, posted an article that said, that how many CEOs that were surveyed as part of a particular survey found that culture, a positive culture, has a positive effect on the financial well-being of the company, because obviously happy employees are going to work harder, and employees that are not happy are going to be leaving the company. And if you take a look at some of the numbers, it takes about 9 months and at least $40,000 to replace an employee. And if you're losing a lot of employees, obviously that's going to add up. If you're going to have technology like what we're talking about, like Biz Library, that can not only help to foster a more positive culture at the workplace, but also give employees upskilling and positive reinforcement, positive job growth that they are looking for and wanting, not only are they going to turn around and bring that to the workplace, but they're also going to be staying at that workplace. And so phrasing it in terms, not just here's what this thing is and here's how much it costs, but here are the problems that we're looking to prevent, and here's how expensive those problems are going to be if they ever rear their ugly heads. That's what you're really wanting to look for.
I think that's an excellent point that David makes, and taking it out further beyond technology, like you mentioned, this is the number one question that I get. And Kaylee and I talked about this. This is the number one question that I get whenever I speak anything about convincing the C-suite, and that can be really, really, really daunting. But David said it exactly right. It's all about the numbers. It's all about the numbers. And so I'll go through a few other things, but really we'll come back to speaking that language of the business. It's all about the numbers and data. You better get ready and go with data, just not, this is cool, I want it. That doesn't fly, right? And so when you look at technology, which tends to be, and I'm going to overgeneralize, and I can do that because I was one of these people who was afraid, tends to be something that scares us, and particularly people who are, Department of One. I spent 10 years of my career as a Department of One, and you have to know a little bit of everything. And when you have to pay people, you have to, do investigations, you have to hire people, you have to terminate people, you're doing all of the basics, the traditional HR functions. Sometimes the last thing you think of is technology, but it is really, really important. So while I speak a lot about technology now, I didn't know much about it until I started learning about it probably about a decade and a half ago. And that's really the key to anything. So I think before we even get to that, go to the C-suite, you have to understand this yourself before you go to the C-suite and ask for something. You have to deeply understand it yourself, and you have to believe it yourself, and you have to be able to talk knowledgeably about it yourself. And you want to go into that conversation, like we said, armed with data. Before you go into that conversation too, what are their concerns? Like, what are you walking into? Have that discussion on what you need to prepare. And a few other things, if you're, let's say you want to upgrade your entire HCM, or you want to upgrade your whole payroll and HR suite, right? So does that position you with a competitive advantage? Does it position you with better risk management? That's definitely something the C-suite can listen to. Can you bring some stories, talk to people in your industry or close to your industry who've used that particular piece of software that you could bring to that conversation? How does it benefit your people? Not how does it benefit you? It may do that, but how does it benefit your people? Does it save them time? Does it allow them easy access to things? Is it going to improve that people experience? And then further down the line, you want to have that implementation plan. You want to align your people goals or whatever your goals are with this particular system to your overall company strategic goals. And then you want to kind of move little by little, but that's kind of a basic way to get started.
Perfect. I love that. We actually have a question in the Q&A. So it's from Shannon. She said, I would love to implement more technology, but this would require a BYOD policy to our vast workforce. Our company is apprehensive. How do I get C-suite and legal department to overcome their apprehensions? Would one of y'all prefer to speak on that?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think first of all, you need to make sure you should overcome apprehensions. I think in some companies, it may be great. Some companies may have things like, I'm thinking like if you're a government contractor, are there things in place where you have to VPN in, you can't go in through a browser, you have to use company provided devices. So you first have to understand that And then I would go in and understand IT's perspective. Is it just, well, this is the way we've done it and we don't want people to bring devices? Or is it, so take that. And then I think you do exactly what we just talked about. You know, what is the cost savings? Because if you have a BYOD policy, you're going to save a ton of money. So I have a company provided laptop. I haven't used it in 4 years. I use my own, I bring my own device. I have my own phone. It's just in the days now of work-life integration, not necessarily work-life balance, I find that a lot easier to manage. So if you're getting feedback from your people saying, I don't want to carry 2 phones, I don't want to have 2 laptops, I don't want to do this, you know, go in with that data and have that conversation.
And I would definitely say that you will be giving up a certain amount of control when it comes to allowing your employees to bring in their own phones. There are certain things that you will not have access to, which is okay. But the flip side of that is you will have connectivity. And when it comes to needing technology for communication or even learning, Biz Library is mobile friendly. We don't have an app because we don't need an app. You just need whatever browser you have on your phone. The ability to allow your employees to be able to use this stuff anywhere at any time, in a lot of ways, can benefit the company. The other thing that I would probably take into account, knowing certain phone plans and knowing what's out there, is will there be a cost incurred by the employee for having to use their own technology? My wife is a teacher, and she used to be able to allow her students to use their phones in the classroom, but some of them didn't want to, not because they didn't want to use their phones, but because they would have to pay for the data. And in some companies are starting to, instead of creating technology plans, giving their employees a stipend, you know, an extra $25 or $50 a month to help cover whatever data usage their work functions are doing. So I think, kind of dovetailing on what Tracie said, what is it that you're trying to accomplish, and looking at that, looking at any potential drawbacks, that's really what to kind of go for and massage any potential concerns that IT will, you know, obviously rightly have when it comes to implementing a platform like this.
Perfect. Thank you both. So on the topic of implementation, when it comes to overcoming resistance or challenges that comes to with technology, how do you get past the pains during that initial implementation phase? So you've gotten C-suite approval, employees are sort of ready for this new technology. How do you get past any of the pains that come with those first couple days, weeks, months of trying to get everyone on board new technology? And then David, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would say it's just like cooking barbecue. You go low and slow. Listen to the people that are having the pains. What are the pains they are having? Why are they having these pains? Is it that they had messed up something in the past? Have they never seen anything like this before? And actually communicate with them. We're lucky at Biz Library is that our new clients are never just sort of given the platform and told to have a happy day. They actually go through a couple of month implementation process with our absolutely fantastic implementation team. And they will work with them every step of the way. Here's how to set up the accounts, and here's how to set up your platform. Let's launch the first couple of lessons together, and so on and so forth, which is nice. The other thing that I would probably say to do, and I've seen this used at many other companies to great effect, this kind of goes back to the gamification, is if you find the people that are getting all the top awards, those are your high power users. And those are the people that you can go to, or your, you know, I don't want to say technology averse, but let's go ahead and use that phrase. That's who they can talk to. They're not going to go talk to HR saying that they have a technical problem. They're not going to go talk to their bosses saying that they have a technical problem. They're going to find a peer first. It's like that in education. It's like that pretty much in every field. So if you have this information out there, somebody knows, hey, this person is the top user. I can ask those questions. And on the flip side, you can start advertising those top users as the people to go through, kind of, coaches, shall we say, for employees that are having difficulty to go to. Do not push through, do not bulldoze like a bull in a china shop. Go slow, understand what's going on, and have people and functions ready to answer those questions when they come up. Not if they will come up, when they come up.
I think that's great. And I don't know how much more I can add. I'll kind of piggyback on some of the things there. So you mentioned getting people involved. And I think, even before implementation, from like thought process, get people involved, and not just managers, get your frontline people, get the users involved in the whole decision-making process, ideally. So even before you get to implementation, make sure you have, obviously you'll have management support at that point, but make sure that you have your people involved, because, if they're involved, they're going to understand not just why you're doing it, but how it's going to happen. And they're going to have a part in that process. So they're going to see that entire process all the way through implementation. And it makes it probably easier to develop those people, like David talked about. We call them champions in our organization. So whatever we're going through, whatever kind of either change or technology upgrade, we have people throughout our organization that have kind of been in and on the process and can help go, you know what, you really should do this. This is really great. This is, let me show you something that I learned. And that goes a long way, because something else David said really resonated in that, they're not necessarily going to go to their manager. They're going to go to their peers. That's who if I had $1 for every time somebody came to me and said, I was talking with somebody else in my company, and we had a question. They come to me only because they couldn't get it answered by another peer, right? And so that's where you need to go. And that's where you need to go. And that's what's going to carry you through. And then the last thing I'd add is be transparent. If the implementation sucks and is taking a really long time, like, don't hide that, share those pains with the organization and be really transparent throughout that whole process.
Perfect. I was on mute, of course, Zoom. But that was amazing. Thank you both. And so we've talked about all these incredible things, these incredible insights, but what closing advice would you give to organizations who are seeking to leverage technology for connectivity and motivation, bringing it back to the whole reason why we're all here today? Tracie, do you want to start?
Yeah, there's a few things. I think I touched on this earlier. Really, it's important that technology can align your people-focused goals with your overall company goals, and can knit those strategies, your people strategy and your company strategy together, can knit those together. And it's important to remember, technology is a tool. It's a thing. It's a thing that helps us do other things, right? And so what's important to remember when you're talking about technology with anything is put the person at the center. Don't put the technology at the center. Put the person at the center, because that tool, that thing in the technology that you're working with is going to solve a problem for those incredible humans in your organization.
I would probably, I completely agree with everything. You definitely have to focus on the person. And I would honestly also focus on what is the situation that you're trying to resolve. When you have technology, what is the end goal improvement that's going to happen for your organization, and then find the right piece of technology that's going to make that improvement. I would also say to take a look at how big the technology is. There are some companies out there that want to focus on the super huge companies like Walmart and GM. And if you are a 5-location restaurant in Milwaukee, it's probably not going to be the right fit for you. You probably want somebody who works with organizations your size and not the super huge multinationals. So I definitely do a little bit of work and research and look into that to make sure that you're finding not just the company and the technology that provides the right result, but also a scale to provide the right fit for you as well.
That's an excellent point because, some companies, I know Biz Library would disclose this and GoCo would disclose this, but you ask another company, because I've done this when pitched by vendors, like, well, you don't work with, your average company size is not, our company size. Oh yeah, we work with companies your size. Yeah. You don't want to be the largest or the smallest organization of any particular vendor. So you ideally want to be in that sweet spot. We're in the mid-market. We've got about 700 people. We want vendors who serve that mid-market really, really, really well.
No, I love that. And actually, GoCo does specialize in small to medium-sized businesses, just as David was chatting about. So this is
You're very transparent about that. I love that. I know it's great.
So this is a great time to mention also that if you visit goco.io/coffee, we will send you a free Starbucks gift card so that you can sit down and chat with your team to see if, an all-in-one HRIS is best for your business. So goco.io/coffee. Additionally, I also just shared the SHRM code in the chat for the SHRM recertification credit. So make sure you see that as well. And then, David, do you want to give a little outro about Biz Library?
Absolutely. Pumpkin spice latte is released tomorrow, by the way.
I'm so excited.
Very excited.
I read that.
If you are interested in learning a little bit more about Biz Library, and just kind of like GoCo, we are a small to medium sized focused company. Obviously, we've got companies of all sizes, but that's kind of who we really focus on. Head to bizlibrary.com/demo, and you'll talk to one of the amazing people that are on our team. One quick plug is if you go to bizlibrary.com, you can also register for Align, which is our user conference, where we will be bringing some of the subject matter experts that are hosts of our Biz Academy live classes and our Expert Insights series to talk about 2 days of learning and development, a lot of amazing stuff. It is free for everybody, and you'll find the link at bizlibrary.com.
Yes, I'm so excited for Align and everything that y'all have going on with that. So I can't wait for that. I have a couple questions additionally that people had sent in when they registered for the webinar. So first, quickly, Sabrina, I see how do we order the coffee? If you go to goco.io/coffee, you can fill out your info and then we'll send you a gift card once you sign up for a demo with us. A couple other questions that we have are, what if the budget that we have isn't really that big? What are some suggestions for technology methods that we can use that are either no cost or low cost? I know that this could be a whole webinar in itself, but do y'all have any quick ideas?
Actually, that's a great idea, Kaylee. First of all, I would start that webinar discussion with examining why and maybe asking for more budget, because HR departments are historically under-resourced and underfunded. And the worst thing that can happen is someone says no. So first, do the research, find out what kind of investment you need, ask the budget. Recognizing that that's not always going to work, because I've been in places like that before myself. There are so many free or very low cost tools out there depending on what you want. So there's an entire open source, if you just search like HR open source, an entire open source community. Whenever you're downloading new tech, you need to be a little bit careful, but there is likely, it may have ads, but there's likely a free version of whatever tool you're looking for. It has probably limitations and you have to be very careful. But there's just about anything that you can find out there. And I would Google, I would ask ChatGPT. I would, do what you can, ask your friends, ask your colleagues, but tons and tons of free resources out there. You don't have to spend a lot of money or any money.
I would also say, don't assume that all of the budget has to come out of your pot. Look, especially with something like Biz Library, we are much more than just the standard HR courses. Yes, we have anti-harassment. Yes, we have a lot of those pieces of content, and they're very good. But we also have a lot of safety content. We also have a lot of sales content. We also have a lot of manager content. There are so many pieces of content that touch on so many different departments of your average company that having everybody understand what this is and kind of chipping in not only will help diffuse the costs among the rest of the company, but it's also going to create buy-in from those departments so that they're going to come in and get whatever they want out of the purchase, ultimately helping them and their employees.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much. I think that is all the questions we have. Y'all were amazing and answered all the other questions during the webinar itself. So I just really appreciate both of you being here and sharing all of your insights. Thank you to everyone who joined today. I did share the SHRM code in the chat, and we also have a webinar next month all about onboarding and week 1 secrets to leaving a lasting impression on new employees. So make sure to check that out. Some final thoughts and information. I will be sharing the recording and the slides probably today or tomorrow. So I'll get that out to everyone, as well as the SHRM code for those who attended for the allotted amount of time. And I just really appreciate both of you, Tracie and David, for being here today. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Kaylee. I just dropped my LinkedIn in the chat, and I'd love to connect with folks over there on LinkedIn. So it's been a pleasure. These are always fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And
good questions too.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I had a blast. Yeah, and if you go to Biz Library, if you're looking at a demo, make sure to tell them Dave sent you. They'll treat you well. I promise.
Perfect. Well, thank you both. I hope everyone has an amazing rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.